Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's developer coaching webinar. My name is Tara Van Cleve, and I'm part of the database organization here at Oracle. Today, we're excited to show you a live demo on how easy it is to switch a real existing application and its data from MongoDB to Oracle Database and unlock many more use cases directly on your data. If you have any questions, we've enabled the Q&A section of the Zoom and will answer throughout the hour, as well as leave some time at the end for any remaining open questions. Today's webinar will be presented by Beta Hammerschmidt, VP of Oracle Database, SQL, and Analytics, and Nacho Martinez, Data Scientist Advocate. So, without further ado, Beta, take it away.
So let's get started here. So if you move an application from one database to another, that's usually called a migration. And most people think, or their experience is that it's quite involved. The languages is different. You have to rewrite code. And this is not the case if you go from MongoDB to Oracle Database. This is why we call it switching here and not migrating. So first of all, what's really relevant here? Like, you don't want to lose any data. If you have data in MongoDB and you move it to another database like Oracle Database, you want the data to be consistent. No fidelity loss, no information loss. And that is exactly what's possible here. MongoDB has a format called BSON. Oracle has a format called OSIN. They support the very same data type inside. So if you move data from MongoDB to Oracle, there is absolutely no loss in data fidelity. Your data remains absolutely consistent, and we can convert it from our format to MongoDB's format without any data loss. More important is also that an app that was written for MongoDB should behave the exact same way on Oracle Database as it did on MongoDB. For example, if you had an index, or if you had certain operators that had some filter expression, for example, you want this to run exactly the same way as it did on your MongoDB database. And for this, we have a feature called MongoDB API, which takes Mongo commands and just runs them on Oracle Database. So this is why developers can expect 0 to minimal changes. Sometimes people change things because there is more things possible on Oracle Database where they had to do some workarounds, and now it's possible much easier. So some developers take the opportunity to optimize the code, for example. But in the simplest case, all you do is you change the connect string and you point your application to an Oracle database. And this is what Nacho will show us later. And a very interesting side effect of doing it is not only do you get more capabilities, you typically also cut your cost in half. So lowering the cost of running on Oracle Database is a very interesting aspect here. So let's look at the benefits. So on the left side, you see an application developer who moved their application to an Oracle Database. And the nice thing is, because we understand the MongoDB language, the wire protocol, all the tools, the frameworks, the drivers can be continued to use. So if you like MongoDB Compass, or if you move data around with MongoDB Export, etc., all these tools will continue to work with Oracle Database. Like if you have skills, how to do data modeling, when to index, what kind of index, that will all continue with Oracle Database. But as a developer, now because you store your data in Oracle Database, you can also use capabilities that MongoDB did not have. The most basic thing would be SQL. You can do arbitrary joins, or you can do reporting. And that is very interesting for analytical use cases. So we see a lot of customers that use MongoDB. They often move data around to another database for reporting or analytical use cases, dashboards, etc. And now all of that can be done in one database, because Oracle Database is also a very strong SQL database. I mean, that's where we started with, obviously. So if someone has more of a SQL background, let's say they're an analyst, they develop dashboards, machine learning, AI, they can expose all that data that came as MongoDB data in JSON format and expose it to the relational services. So they can join it, they can also generate JSON data and move it back to be accessible for MongoDB API. And also all the vector and AI capabilities are possible to use on the same JSON data. So you can basically AI enable an application that was written for MongoDB. Now, all of this runs on the same database, so you don't have to move data around with a NoSQL database and a SQL database. It's all possible in one database, which also gives you REST access, SQL access, many different APIs, has BI tools, including Excel, for example. And this is called the Autonomous JSON Database. So that's a cloud service which has it's MongoDB compatible, and you move your data there, and you get the ability to run way more workloads than on MongoDB at a lower cost. So in order to migrate data, if you want to move data to Oracle Database, as I said, we support MongoDB's tools. So the easiest thing would just be to do a Mongo export and take that data and run a Mongo import and use Oracle Database as the source of the import. We also have people that want to do a zero downtime or online migration. So Oracle Golden Gate supports this. So if you have an application that while you migrate still has to be accessible by your customers, that's also possible using Golden Gate. So no downtime, your application can run during the cutover. The database API for MongoDB is what enables this MongoDB compatibility. So we have an endpoint for Oracle Database that takes that you connect to from your MongoDB application, and then it supports these Mongo operations on Oracle Database. We support transactions. We have all kind of indexes, same as MongoDB. We support aggregation pipeline, etc. So you can run your Mongo applications against Oracle using this database API for MongoDB. But once your data is in Oracle, you also get the comprehensible JSON capabilities from Oracle Database. So we store data in JSON collection tables. We have a very efficient format called OSIN, which is very fast, for example, for updates. So if you have update-heavy workloads, they usually gain a lot in performance. You can access the data depending on how you want to work with your data. You could say, I use the Mongo API, I use REST, I use SQL. All of this works with the same data. Your data is always fully consistent. And for new applications where you have more complex data models, where let's say you have data that you want to share it across different JSON documents. You don't have to duplicate these documents. We are even able to keep different documents consistent. And that feature is called JSON relational duality. So this is very interesting for new development. But now let's really look at the demo. So what did we do? We took an application that was built by a community of developers. So this is not something we built for the purpose of showing that migrations are possible. This is like a real demo app, which we didn't build. It uses a very common stack, the MERN stack, Mongo, Express, React, and Node. And we use MongoDB's utilities to move this data, change the connect string, and run this application then on Oracle unmodified. And with this, I turn over to Nacho.
Thank you for that. So yeah, I just want to show you quickly and simply how this switch is made, right? So just very quickly, I wanted to introduce you to the MERN stack, right? Because we are going to use on this demo an application that was already developed by someone else. It's open source, it's available on GitHub. And we chose to use this application because we want you to understand that making this switch is actually already possible with applications that have been already developed. And you know, why is it called MERN? Well, MERN stands for Mongo, React, Express, and Node, which is the application stack that is or that was used to develop this application, right? So for the database, they do have a non-relational database in Mongo, which stores all the documents of their e-commerce application. So a lot of products in order to sell, a list of orders, a list of addresses to send the information to. There is also a little bit of customization on the profile, which I'll show you now. But yeah, then the backend of the application is implemented using Node and Express. So the good thing about having this modular kind of design on the development of the application is that it's very easy to integrate. You can easily switch, different components. If you'd like to switch between React and another front end, you can do that very easily, just because of all the components being modular, right? So it's kind of like a microservice architecture where you have different endpoints, and each endpoint is minimalistic, and each endpoint doesn't interact with any other endpoint, so that they are very isolated. So for big teams in development, for example, if you have 100 developers working on this application, it's very beneficial because you can delegate the work of 100 developers without any interference. And the only disadvantage is that the application stack becomes a little bit bigger just because of the necessity to not have isolation, to have isolation, to not have any conflicts between the developers, right? So what are we going to do with this Mongo? We want to effectively change the backend and the database component from Mongo to Autonomous without a lot of work, right? And there are two options for this. I will introduce you to the command line option, which is going to use MongoDump and Mongo Restore, which are two commands that will allow us to take a snapshot of the database and then take that snapshot into Autonomous just with one simple command, which I'll show you how. And then there is another way with Golden Gate, which Beda will mention at the end of the conversation. But there is another way to do this, and it's actually no need for command line interface or anything. You can just use an Oracle Golden Gate for this. But without further ado, let me show you the application, right? So just to show you that I'm not doing anything crazy, I do have my app running here. So let me just run it with you. Just spinning up all the backend. Is also running at the moment against this MongoDB container that I have running locally. So this is the official MongoDB container, and I'm using this as the backend, right? I'm connecting. Here I'm using this environment, this configuration file, and here I'm pointing to the endpoint of my local e-commerce application that is exactly running on localhost on this point. So just to give you a little introduction into the application, right? I'm connected to the admin user, so let me just go through a whole process again. What I would like to show you is, use a little bit of the application. And once we use the application and make an order, make a purchase or something, I'll show you what's actually going on inside the MongoDB container. And we'll see about how the data is structured. And then we'll make the switch and we'll see that, using the application doesn't change at all. You just have to change one parameter and that's it, right? So here I am on my admin panel. I mean, I can show you all the products of the application. We do have a list of brands. It's just like a mini Amazon, right? So we do have a list of brands, list of items in the shop. I can just, they are randomly generated. So it's not really a concrete salad, but it very well could be. So I will just add one concrete salad for $922 to my order, right? Let me just make an order. And, as an admin of the application, I also have access to all the orders that were made, right? I have an order on July 23rd, which was me. Also from July 24th, July 31st, and now I have this order that we just made. Right. So I can also go to the orders, change, the status delivery if I'm shipping it. And the user will get a notification and stuff. So let me just, for the sake of it, remember that we just made an order for $900. But let me just add one brand as well. And the brands are just aggregators of different, items on the shop. Let me just add one so that it will pop up on this menu, right? So just my new brand. Right? Right, and the brand was successfully added, right? And now I can see it here on my list of brands. So as you can see, all the common operations, and just like Beta has said, this application is, well, we're focusing on this application specifically on the simple operations, right? There is also another advanced component, which we will see on another webinar in the future, which will tackle JSON duality views in itself. For this one, I just want you to have a clear mind of what's going on. So we just created an order and we just created a brand. So with the MongoDB Compass, which is a great application that allows me to connect to my local MongoDB instance, right? I do have my MERN e-commerce schema here. And of course, this just contains JSON objects because as we're using Mongo, this uses non-relational storage system. So if I go to my orders, I can see that the order that we just made, which I believe was this one, was made on the 7th of August, which is today, right? And if I go to the brands, we should also be able to see the brand that we just created through the interface, right? My new brand, which was created also on the 7th on the 8th of August, the 7th, sorry. So, right, these objects are created. Of course, my database is running against the MongoDB container. So why else wouldn't it work? So now that we have used the application, I want to show you how easy it is to take a snapshot of what's actually on the database and then put it into Autonomous. So without doing anything, I'm just going to run my mongodump command, which is going to run against the MongoDB local container instance URI. And when I run this, it takes all the collections that it found on the MERN e-commerce schema. It will take them and put it into byte format, but in JSON byte format, and it prepares a directory, right? That contains this information, right? A lot of documents, but if I try to access them, sorry, if I try to access them, let me see the orders. They are kind of like in an encrypted format, right? So I can take these files now that I just made this dump directory, right? And by restoring, I am going to point to another URI. And I'll show you how I generated this URI for Autonomous, but this is the URI that Autonomous gives me in order to be able to, in order to be able to make this export, right? So how did I get this one? Within my OCI account, right? I'm in my Autonomous database panel. And here, I have all the database configuration, all the parameters. And there's also a tab here called tool configuration. So these are like, you can call them plugins, and they are plugins that can be enabled or disabled on your Autonomous database. And the great thing about these plugins is that you don't have to do anything. You just have to enable them, and they will already give you the functionality of the plugin. So if you're looking to, for example, develop something with low code, you can use the Oracle Apex plugin and enable it. If you want to access the database in many ways, you can use the database actions. But for this specific use case, we are going to use, of course, the MongoDB API. or the Oracle Database API for MongoDB. And this gives us this public access URL, right? So here, if I just copy this and I just modify the user and the password here, and the user as well here, which is kind of what I'm doing in this file, as you'll see, what I'm gonna do is comment the previous one and uncomment the new one with my user and password, right? And this is the, the URI or the URL that was given to me. So I'll just save it. And now the next time I run my application, it's going to run against this MongoDB URI, right? And the thing that we need to finish is doing the export, because if you're doing an export, if you just change that configuration file without doing an export of what was already on the database, the thing is that you will encounter that you don't have any items, right? It will just be like starting a new application. So all the orders, all the users on your previous application would be lost. So by running this Mongo restore command, what's actually doing is dropping whatever was on the previous database. You can choose not to drop it if you want. It's reading all the metadata from the documents and restoring the original state of the snapshot that we just created and putting it into Autonomous. So now that this has been finished and it tells you if there were any errors, 138 documents were restored successfully and no documents failed to restore, which means we're good to go. We just made a copy of Mongo, of what was in Mongo, in Autonomous. But the good thing now is that we can also benefit from all the advantages of having this in a dual database, right? The database that can handle non-relational operations with JSON and also relational operations with SQL. So, and as I said, we will go into much more detail in another session about the advantages of having JSON duality views. But what I want to show now is that the application, after having made this very, very simple switch, it still works and I can still operate it without any issue. So I just modified the URL. So let me just rerun the application. And now this time that I run the application, it will be running against my Autonomous database. And I'll be able to show you this in a second. So let me just sign out and sign in, because the user information should be saved. And if I go to my orders, I can see that the order that we made on MongoDB is now also reflected here, which means that whatever we did in the past has been successfully exported into Autonomous. And I can, you remember that I changed it to shipped. Let's just say that, I don't care about this customer. I want to cancel his order because I don't like him. So let's just, cancel the order, right? And now it disappeared from here. Also, we created a brand, if you remember, right? My new brand. So if I access these things on my Autonomous, I can also create, using the Compass application, another connection to my e-commerce application. And here I'll be able to see, all the orders and stuff that we made. And as you see, since I just canceled the order, it doesn't appear anymore because we just canceled it. And, this means that all the functionality of the application is now running against Autonomous. So now we can actually benefit from all the plugins, all the functionalities, and everything that we do offer on Autonomous that you wouldn't get if you were just using a non-relational database without having any additional logic. So yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to show you on the demo. You could, in theory, do this with any MongoDB application that you have. You just have to be mindful of enabling the MongoDB API, first of all, and then generating this URL and switching it wherever you're connecting to your e-commerce application or non-e-commerce application. you just have to switch this on your configuration file in your frontend. And with that, you enable everything that we can offer. And one more thing I wanted to show you is this add-in or Excel add-in or plugin that we do offer on the Autonomous Database that allows you to run multiple SQL commands and also has other types of benefits because it has, for example, a connection to Select AI, which allows you to use large language models to model your SQL queries. So that's specifically interesting for people like me who don't know a lot about SQL. So if you go into this this tab here, download Microsoft Excel or Google Drive, you do get some information. So you can download the add-in here and also the connection file. And with this, you can arrive into your Excel and install the plugin here. So once you sign into the plugin, you can create a connection to your Autonomous Database. So let me log in. And once you are logged in, you can get access to a lot of these features. So you can explore about them, but you can have multiple connections to multiple databases. You can run direct SQL commands or set up natural language and data analysis, which are other features that you can use to visualize data and stuff. So for the direct SQL, we prepared 2 queries for you on the guide. And this one, for example, this view was created to specifically monitor those products that have or are worth more than $50 when we sell them and that are still active. So this would be a way for people that are managing the application to get an inventory of the items that are more than $50, which is especially useful if you have a lot of customers coming into your store and you need to check how much stuff you can still sell before making another order for your app. So if you don't know about this SQL creation, you can also use this direct SQL query tool that already gives you access to the active products over 50. So you can just drag and drop and it will generate the query for you. So you can run this and as you can see, this already gives you all the products over $50. There is no product under $50. So yeah, this is one of the integrations that we do offer with Autonomous Database, and especially for people who are not really 100% technical, this is very particularly interesting because you can use the database in Excel or in Google Drive if you wanted. So this does conclude the demo. But Beda, would you like to say a little bit more about Golden Gate and these things?
Yes, of course. So let me share my screen again. Let's quickly do a recap. So you can easily switch. It's not a migration where you have to rewrite your code, learn other languages. You take your MongoDB application, your tools, whatever you're familiar with, whatever you like, change the connect string and work with Oracle Database. That you have shown how easy it is, how frictionless. At the same time, if you would do that in production, you would realize that your costs go down. Oracle Database is a high-performant OLTP database, so we can run like massive amounts of these workloads. That's what allows us to offer this at like a really interesting price point. And I think what we're going to show in one of our next presentations is really how to leverage this for AI, right? How to make AI applications here, Nacho. So if people want to migrate, the easiest thing is really to do Mongo export, Mongo import. That works relatively well for small to medium size, medium amount of data. But once you have larger amounts of data, or if you want to do like an online/zero downtime migration, we also made that easier with Golden Gate. So there is a container that you can download and use for free, like no licenses needed for this. Or it's like a free license, something like this. And that is kind of a visual tool to migrate off or to move data, migrate, switch from MongoDB to Oracle Database. Target right now is 23 AI only. And this was another question in the chat. We can go to this and you can ask more questions. So one question that just came is like, does this only work? Or the question was like, what Oracle version is needed? So what we have shown is our latest version, which is 23 AI. But it's also possible to use 19C for this. This is a bit limited. We don't support all indexing options on 19C. Like the array index is something that's only available in 23 AI. And also the aggregation pipeline is very limited in 19C. But for many applications, you can even use 19C. And that brings me to the other question that was asked and that I answered in the Q&A, was about, is this only available in Autonomous? So what we have shown is Autonomous, and I think this is the easiest way to consume this because we have managed the Mongo API there. And it's not only that the Mongo API is there, it is also highly available, highly redundant. So it really works for applications which have high HA and DR, like high availability and disaster recovery requirements. But you could also run this on an on-premise database. You would just have to maintain that MongoDB API component manually. But we do have many customers who migrate also on-prem Mongo to on-prem Oracle database. There was another question, and I get that all the time on performance, like isn't Oracle slow because it's a relational database and MongoDB is a NoSQL database and NoSQL is so much faster? The reality here is that from a technical side, it's quite comparable. So MongoDB stores data in a binary format called BSON. We store ours in a binary format called OSIN. The reason we picked another format and didn't use like Avro or else is that we wanted to be able to do updates very fast. Like if you have a megabyte JSON document and you change a few bytes, you don't want to have to write the entire megabyte. So we can do piecewise updates. And honestly, like if I look at MongoDB applications, 95% of performance tuning is done using indexes. So, and we do have the same indexing in Oracle. So you will get the same experience out of the box, the same performance, usually a bit faster with Oracle, because we're a bit better on like concurrent operations. Like if you have a lot of reads and writes and deletes concurrently, we can handle that very well. We can also run queries in parallel. And that brings me to the other point. Like MongoDB, basically from performance tuning point, you can shard and you can index. I think that's it. You have the same abilities in Oracle database, but we also have many other things. Like we can execute queries in parallel. We can do stuff in memory. We have materialized views for fast reporting and analytics. And a very interesting thing is we run all this service like on Autonomous Database that runs on a infrastructure called Exadata, where we can actually push down the predicates like the MongoDB filter expressions right down to the storage layer, where we get like excellent performance even without indexes. So typically if people switch, we always encourage them, hey, also look at everything you index. Maybe you don't need all these indexes because they affect insert performance, because we have such a fast IO subsystem that a lot of queries that you don't run all the time may actually be fast enough without an index. So this is why performance, we offer a lot more. Obviously, that is in one end, that is good because you have way more tuning options. But on the other hand, there's also more tuning options that you can that you look into this. So often there's like 2 ways or 3 ways to solve a problem in Oracle database.
If there are no more questions, big thank you again so much for joining us here today, and we hope to see you at the next one. Thanks all.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, all.